The whole idea that money's running the show, Trigby started a little bit about that. Everything we know about money, economics, and commerce actually got inherited from an era of scarcity that drove win-lose competition over money and a grow-or-die business imperative. Well, today, we're so many times overbuilt to meet all need on the planet. Food, abundant, renewable resource. Digital downloads, infinite. More education, healthcare, entertainment than anybody could ever consume in a lifetime. So why are people going without? Why is there so much unmet need? And why do we have a giant $900 billion cryptocurrency industry that isn't even trickling down out of the speculative cloud and bringing communities out of poverty? It's because we're very, very confused about money and wealth, and I'll touch on that as we go through this. So this quote by Buckminster Fuller is actually our vision, our mission, and our strategy. How can we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without ecological damage or disadvantage to anyone? We call that win-win for people and the planet. And so what we are in summary, a new digital currency on the blockchain used inside a business community cooperative that turns underutilized capacity, I'll get into that in a minute, into new wealth. And we have a business engine. So we have a business engine to get underneath the things that you're trying to do so that people don't have to choose between the things they love and being able to survive inside the economy. And it promotes ecologically sustainable commerce instead of traditional growth. So what does all that start to look like? Let's start with the sharing economy. It's very interesting. With today's modern technologies of mobile apps and social media, the sharing economy exploded into the world, creating thousands of jobs, millions of jobs, billions of dollars of new wealth. And interestingly, did everybody feel more prosperous when billions of dollars of new goods and services started coming into the economy? Absolutely not, right? Hotels, motels, and their employees took the hit. Cab drivers, limo drivers, and their companies took the hit. So the entire phenomenon was win-lose instead of win-win. And I'll get into that a little more. But what it did show was how to use technology to capture and distribute currently untapped wealth. But it happened to be the untapped wealth of solopreneurs, an empty room in your house, an idle car. What if we had a way of releasing the untapped wealth of society as a whole? Empty college desks, empty restaurant tables, empty airline seats. I mean, again, we're going to see we're drowning in wealth and we're searching for money, our own invention, to distribute it. So what if we could all, instead of a sharing economy that continues to be win-lose, what if we could all benefit from the introduction of all this new social wealth? So the Big Short, how many saw the movie The Big Short? So it was all about the housing bubble that burst. And what they said at the end of the movie was $5 trillion in wealth disappeared just in the US alone. And remember, it rolled out across the world as an economic downturn. 8 million people lost their jobs, 6 million families lost their homes. Countless people lost some or all of their life savings, and innumerable businesses went under, right? It was a serious crash in the system. Okay, go ahead.
Just a comment that people are utilizing the showers. So we live in a van, it's like I can count all these showers that I'm not being allowed to use.
Yeah, I mean, cars are parked more than they're driven. Theaters are empty more than they're full, restaurants are empty more than they're full, and yet people are on street corners begging a tiny bit of money to get the basics. It's crazy. So, but let's go back. So all this suffering came because supposedly $5 trillion in wealth disappeared. Now, we were all living in 2008 when this happened. What disappeared? Somebody tell me anything that disappeared. Products and services, technology, infrastructure, human skill, knowledge, and creativity, raw materials and energy. Did anything real disappear?
Equity.
Well, it's called valuations. Numbers in computers shrunk because you wouldn't be able to get as much for your stock, your house, the sale of your business, and things like that.
All investments.
So if numbers in computers shrunk, that caused, again, all this suffering in the real world for people, families, communities, that's how broken the system is. Now I'm going to argue blaming the rich is kind of a dead end. There isn't a rich person alive on the planet who designed the current system. Everybody alive inherited it. But even beyond that, there isn't a rich person alive on the planet who can eat enough food for anybody on the planet to be hungry, can live in a big enough house for anybody on the planet to be homeless, can consume enough health care or education for anybody on the planet to go without. So this blame the rich, yeah, they have a big number under their name in a computer called a bank account or on a piece of paper called stock, but that's the confusion of money and wealth. So why don't we get our own numbers and start distributing the wealth rather than pointing the finger and blaming? And it's kind of the same with politics. It's all win-lose. So I would argue if aliens landed and said, this is your system, you invented it, and nothing disappeared but your suffering at this extraordinary level, they'd say there's no intelligent life on this planet, and they'd get in their ships and leave. So again, bottom line, we're literally drowning in wealth and searching for money, our own invention, to distribute it. Well, luckily, all of human history, even though it's not a discipline of economics, is about money innovation, and it's technology driven. We went from barter to gold coins based on smelting, gold coins to paper currency and checks based on printing, currency and checks to credit cards and e-commerce based on computers and the internet. So what we think is epic is if we invent the next money and it can roll out across the world at the pace of mobile apps, that's something to celebrate. So how are we going to do that? And I love Gandhi's quote, what we are doing and what we could be doing is enough to change the world, solve most of the world's problems. And this whole blame the rich, blame the poor, blame the foreigners. You know how we blame foreign competition for our economic problems? Is there any foreign competition for our housing market, for our healthcare system, for our schools, for our social security system? So would you say that perhaps blame is, again, part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution? And again, I love another quote by Buckminster Fuller, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. So if we go into the marketplace with a better economic model, it can actually compete and win, but it wins against not other people, but against ignorance and against poverty and against pollution and things like that. So let's pause, turn to somebody and just chat a little bit about what you think, what you saw. I'll take a few questions after that and then I'll show how the system works. Comments, thoughts, objections?
I guess I would just throw in, I definitely see the need for moving away from the money concept and just showing people that, you can live without money. Like the world tries, the United States in particular, tries to make you feel like you need money, but you don't at all. Like if we can contribute all the goods that we associate, well, I need money to buy food, I need money to buy, services for my car. We all just contributed what we have already and say, hey, well, I can fix cars, but I need somebody to, do this, whatever. And we just start working on a trade-based system like it used to be.
More like, just like work-based, you're actually working for things you need versus working for the money that gives you.
Right. So that's a little like barter, and there's two kinds of barter, business to business, hotels trade rooms for airline flights, and the media trades for cars, and that happens at the corporate level. Then there's individual to individual. Watch my kids, I'll give you vegetables from my garden, fix my car, I'll paint your house. But you can't get everything you need in trade, sometimes you got to pay the rent or whatever. So and no one's thought of B2C or business to individual barter because it seems impractical. What would you do, grab a basket of vegetables from your garden and go down to the Home Depot and try to get a saw? But when you can monetize all sides of the transaction, you can actually have a currency exchange between individual barter and business barter. And so again, we'll show how we figured out how to do that. Has anybody read the book Walden 2 by B.F. Skinner? It's actually behind a lot of the utopian thinking all across the planet. It was a community, it's a novel, but the community didn't use money the way we know money, where you handed it from person to person and some could have it and some couldn't and you charge interest for it. They had something called a labor credit, which was just an entry in a ledger representing an hour of work. And when everybody put in their hours, everybody took from the bounty of the community, and there was just not a problem with money, of haves and have-nots. People were very excited by their high quality of life without taxes, without insurance, without all kinds of stuff that are a huge part of what we're spending money on today. Any other comments? And then I'll
I
move
just
on.
want to say, what you just said is basically Ubuntu in a nutshell.
Well, and how I would say it is, I believe we have a way to scale the values and the vision of Ubuntu without everybody having to invent their own. If you can just download a mobile app, and I'm sorry, but what I was trying to show, you know, mobile apps are self-evident. You don't have to teach new economics. You just download it, and then you say, where do I go earn Scryp? Where do I go spend Scryp? And it's all right inside the app. It's going to be amazingly simple. So I'll say at the end, give me your card or your slip of paper with your email address, and we'll keep you posted so that you can jump on board the pilot if it's interesting.
So is this is Scryp a way to take like Cindy and Bitcoin and all of the things that are being invented right now that are like separate? Like this
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of time dollars, barter dollars, community currencies. Ithaca Hours is an example of community currencies. We can run anything, loyalty rewards like frequent flyer miles or American Express points. We could run anything through a currency exchange, and then what you'll see in a minute is we have dual currency pricing. Enough cash in the deal to work for the merchant, which is why none of these others, you know, have scaled in the bigger economy, but enough cash in the deal to work for the merchant, enough new money in the deal to work for the consumer as a savings. But now, instead of a throwaway discount at the end of the day, a Groupon or just less cash, we now have what's called a social currency, a new community money that can benefit everybody in a way that the dollar or the peso or the yen hasn't been. All right, so let me talk about the benefits to all the stakeholders, why it's win-win. Merchants have excess capacity, whether it's empty restaurant tables, off hours at the movies, and the YWCA. They want to sell it. So their big advantage, two big advantages. Number one is that they get more customers, more sales, more profits, because they're not going to survive without it. You know, merchants love to give to the community. It's called in-kind contributions, and restaurants give a certain amount of food to the needy, or they often give coupons that nonprofits sell at raffles and auctions and things like that. And but they can't give away very much before it starts disrupting their cash flow and they can't afford it. So one way to access their excess capacity is with these dual currency prices. I'll get there in a minute. So the merchants get customers and sales, they get customer loyalty. You know, Groupon is not building customer loyalty. People just go from place to get a discount. It's not doing the community much good, and the merchant gets just a fraction. I'll get to that in a minute of what they need on a Groupon deal. But the other thing is, the merchant's employees inside of a broad network also get Scryp. So even though the merchant is offering a dual currency price and a cash discount, without extra labor costs, they get to raise employee compensation and build employee loyalty. The activity sponsors, what do we mean by activity sponsor? And later I'll do an exercise, ways that you think Scryp can be earned. So activity sponsors are where people earn their Scryp. And they are the organizations that have already aggregated large numbers of people who become our members or our users. What does that mean? So schools aggregate students, employers aggregate employees. That means they have bunches of them. Community organizations aggregate volunteers or members. The government aggregates seniors through the Social Security system or welfare moms through the welfare system. Healthcare institutions aggregate patients. Now, when they report an activity like a community organization reports the volunteerism to us, we put Scryp in the volunteer's account. When the employer reports an activity like a workplace green team or corporate volunteerism or a workplace wellness team, we put Scryp in the account. And how do we get the Scryp? You'll see in a minute. We contract with merchants for some of this excess capacity we've been talking about. Empty college desks, empty restaurant tables, empty airline seats. So the activity sponsors get a way of rewarding or funding their activities and their members. And again, it comes from us because we have the deals with the merchants for their excess capacity. And then individuals. Individuals do good deeds and they earn Scryp and they save money at the store. So that's pretty simple and pretty obvious. Members are our app users. So now, what does a Scryp deal look like? I've been using the term dual currency. It's very different than any alternative currency. This was advertised as being about alternative currencies. We're actually a breakthrough beyond any alternative currency, which tends to be alternative, stay on the fringe. This tends to go right into the mainstream and be redeemable where people need things. So a $20 restaurant meal might cost $12.08 Scryp. So everybody knows that $12 for the merchant works out. It's like 2-for-1 dining. It's like student discounts or senior discounts. It's like happy hour. A merchant's happy to go with $12 on a $20 meal, but compared to Groupon, with the Groupon deal, the customer saves half, so that leaves 10 in cash. And then Groupon takes half, so that leaves 5 in cash. So compare 5 to the merchant where they're not making anything. They're lucky if they get the person to buy a little more than the Groupon, or if they get the person to come back. But we say if every single deal is making money for the merchant, it's called an incremental sale and an incremental profit. So, and it's based on something called the marginal cost of production, which I'll explain in a minute. But again, like I said, if the user, this used to be our symbol for health dollars. I didn't change it to Scryp. Health bucks. We have a whole way of applying this to the healthcare system, so that instead of a heart attack being an economic boom and and quitting smoking being something that lowers the GDP, we have money that actually spreads wellness, rewards healthy eating, exercise, yoga, meditation, all the things instead of cancer, diabetes, pharmaceuticals, and on and on. So that's a quick elevator pitch on the healthcare version of this. But the consumer saves 8, the merchant gets 12, and society gets Scryp. And then what about a fitness club pass, like a $20 weekend pass to the Y? Well, there's no food in the deal. Off-hour cost at the Y is just a hot shower and a towel. So do you see why if the Y gets 6 in cash but 14 in Scryp, they're doing just as well as the restaurant. They don't have the cost of food in the deal. So what we've created is basically an industry standard that works across airlines and colleges. I'll just give one more example. What's the marginal cost of filling an empty airline seat?
$1.
A Coke, a bag of peanuts, a little wear and tear on the fabric on the seat, and $10 worth of gas. So again, if a $500 flight to Boston was $250 in cash and $250 in Scryp, good money for the airlines, but plenty of savings for the customer. All right. So now, how do we do this? It's not magic. It's just a practical business model. We contract with merchants for all this excess capacity. Look at all those categories: empty theater seats, empty motel rooms, airline seats, special volume purchases at retailers, downloadable stuff. I mean, there is so much out there that's not even touched. And so when we make a dual currency contract with each of them to take Scryp, that helps us build a Scryp business community wealth bank. Now it's a virtual wealth bank. We're not Sam's Club or Costco. We don't buy all this stuff up and move it somewhere. It sits right at the airlines, right at the restaurant, right at the online downloadable, right at the university, and then you go in with your Scryp and you pay part cash, part Scryp. Just a practical model. Yeah, it works on the same principles as Travelocity, Expedia, Groupon, 2-for-1 dining. We made it look like traditional business, but traditional business just takes discounts. They don't do dual currency commerce and build a new money that benefits all of society. So what do you think? How would you see people earn Scryp in society to make a better world? What comes to mind? Where would you like to see Scryp awarded for people's good deeds? You guys are living it, so.
Stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. Bingo! Let me just say that one of the ways we put it is everything that could be paid and isn't paid today can be paid in Scryp. There's market, cooking, cleaning, shopping, chauffeuring, laundry, senior care, childcare. It's a ridiculous inherited practice to have stay-at-home moms and dads unpaid. Now, what else? Well, there's paid coding all across the economy, software development stuff, and there's unpaid open source coding. Community volunteerism, which we know in Minnesota has been calculated to be valued at about $26 an hour. So there's, what do volunteers do? They mentor, they chauffeur, they read, they tutor. Well, why is that all paid in the cash economy and unpaid in the volunteer economy? Excellent. Other examples? What else could we get done in society if we had a nearly unlimited budget of Scryp because there's nearly unlimited excess capacity across the economy?
Growing food.
Agriculture, all kind, permaculture. We could be building greenhouses on flat roofs. That means every strip mall, big box retailer, school. What is that? That's jobs for youth, mentoring opportunities for seniors, local organic available food, eliminate the enormous cost and environmental expense of transporting stuff all over the place, and an energy source when we pump it down into the buildings. I mean, we are so far, there's such a gap between what's now possible in the modern world and how we're living. Again, if aliens landed, but it's so primitive, we might as well be cannibals, right? How come she's got all the answers? Come on, what? How else would you use Scryp? This is the audience participation part, gang. It shows me that you've been listening. Anybody?
I think if you transfer your transportation, like if you lower your economic footprint, like by choosing biking or public transportation, then you should get rewarded for that.
That's a perfect example. Or how about carpooling? If you still need to travel, why don't you do it with 2, 3, or 4 people instead of one person per car? That's rewardable. That's a huge incentive. What the economy's learned, this will be a fun little riff. The economy's learned that loyalty rewards work as incentives, right? People go to earn loyalty rewards. Now what's the problem if all the rewards are for consumer spending? Number one, whoever has the most money now gets the most rewards, right? So this is a much more level playing field. Number two, 7,000 competing kinds of money. That doesn't work very well. We're creating a win-win money, and then we'll translate some of those competing monies into Scryp. And then, if all the rewards are for consumer spending, what's that like for the environment? It just pushes consumerism, right? So why don't we reward sustainability activities? All right, so I think we got a bunch of good examples that we can figure out things to reward. It'll be a whole renaissance of what work means. And one other thing is, in our culture today that we inherited, you work when you're young, you learn when you're young, you work in all your middle years, and if you're lucky and have health and money, you can have some leisure in your retirement. What's the matter with thinking about rewiring things for lifelong learning, lifelong contribution, and lifelong healthy, balanced lifestyle? Is that so far-fetched? This is a built system, folks. We invented it. It's not like the weather that is imposed upon us. This is like, we invented this system. It's time to update it to modern times. All right. So now, we have some questions about better money design. How is it issued? What backs it? You've already seen how it's redeemed. So, how does it enter the world? I'm going to riff on cryptocurrency a little bit because it's so popular, but like I said, a $900 billion industry is not bringing communities out of poverty. It's not creating jobs. It's just not that great a money design. So, two issues. Say again?
So it's almost like a pyramid scheme.
It's a speculative bubble at the moment.
Is conglomerating all of the wealth until it no longer means anything to anyone else.
Well, it's very interesting. It's one more example of the confusion between money and wealth. We've issued tons of money that has almost no relationship to wealth, to goods and services that are needed. It's not distributing goods and services. It's not taken by merchants. Now, who knows, so I'm gonna say, how is money issued and how is money backed? So how is the US dollar issued?
Debt.
Exactly, it's loaned to businesses and hopefully trickles down to communities as jobs and all that benefit. But we know how trickle-down's been working for decades. Now, how is crypto issued?
Mining.
Mining, computer algorithms. So how is Scryp issued? Well, I've just been running through it. We find the rewardable activities in society that aren't being rewarded, and we start rewarding them in partnership with where people work, live, get government services, go to healthcare, and things like that. Now, what backs the dollar?
Nothing.
Debt, but basically, we just saw how it can collapse whole parts of the economy, or the whole thing can collapse, like the rollout after the housing bubble. What backs crypto?
Nothing.
Yeah, thank you. We got a chorus in the back here. Nothing. Now, I've kind of explained about what backs Scryp. It's absolutely unique in the world of money, except it is like a certain business currency out there that I'll let you guess what it is. But what backs Scryp?
Service, activity.
Activities, how it's issued. What backs it? What do you know you can get for your Scryp? I said we create contracts with who? Merchants for what? Their excess capacity, right? On a dual currency basis. So, dollar backed by debt or nothing. Crypto backed by computer algorithms or nothing. Scryp backed by contracts with merchants for real goods and services. So that, I believe, is the breakthrough. Can merchants accept it easily? The dollar, absolutely. The coin of the realm. Crypto, absolutely not. It's almost, those merchants will accept it. All right, but Scryp, that's why we made it dual currency. That's why we're using mobile apps. I've been at this a while. We had Groupon technology 3 years before Groupon, but when we went to investors to scale this thing up the way Groupon eventually scaled up, they said, coupons, you're out of your mind, we're not investing in coupons. So we've had several false starts, wrong turns, but we think we're onto it with mobile apps. Is it subject to speculation? Obviously crypto is, and obviously the dollar is. You want to know how we prevent speculation? Ours is modeled partly on loyalty rewards. Now, loyalty rewards don't circulate. They're issued, they're redeemed, and they're taken off the books. So like I was talking about Walden 2 being just an entry in a ledger, loyalty rewards are just an entry in a ledger. So you never see, people speculating in frequent flyer miles or in hotel points or in anything like that. Very important design feature of our money. We don't care for speculation. Whoever has the most money makes the most money. But this is a way of keeping a fair and even playing field for everybody willing to go out and give it a try. So we're not subject to speculation. Crypto is. Why? Because we modeled this on an accounting tool and not on a circulating currency. Does it raise everybody up? I hope I've made the point that it does. Does it help to transcend left versus right? This is one of the most important things I can say today. We are so stuck in the left versus right polarization and stalemate. Well, what does the right need to buy in? First of all, we created a business model. It's pretty hard for them to fight that. But the right says, don't force us to do what you want us to do. So it has to be voluntary. This is 100% voluntary. They say, don't tax us for your programs. This is 100% self-funding from our little transaction fees, not our giant Groupon ripoff, but like Visa, just little transaction fees. Now, what does the left say? Don't give us your trickle-down bullshit, because it's never going to trickle down. Well, if the wealth is just sitting there to be moved over to where it's needed, abundant food is an abundant renewable resource, we could have people done starving next week. All right? So it's not trickle down, but it's not tax and spend. This is a very big deal that we solve for the historic left versus right polarization and stalemate. All right, getting to the end. This whole model that I call money innovation is part and parcel of all economic history and all economic paradigm shifts, but you've never heard the term, and it's not a discipline of economics. Now, how whack is that? And I have been a little isolated out on the edge with this thing for a while, but it's going to be mainstream sooner than you think. So, like I said, agricultural era, powered by barter and gold coins. The interesting thing is there's also an accelerating pace of human social evolution. You'll know what I mean in a minute. It took about 14 billion years to get us all up out of the ooze, you know, and walking around. But then the party really got going. The whole agricultural era, powered by barter and gold coins, 3,000 to 5,000 years. The whole industrial era, powered by paper currency and checks, 300 to 500 years. The whole high-tech global era, powered by credit cards, e-commerce, now mobile apps, and digital money, mature in 30 to 50 years. Somebody toss out a maybe possibility for how fast this thing could be born into the world on the back of mobile apps. You got it. That's the pattern, right? That's the algorithm. So again, we're not weird, off the beaten path beatniks or aliens. We're just using standard historic models and business practices. And we're gonna be well under the 45 minutes we were given. So whatever you want to do about questions, answered, discussion, and things like that, that can go on however much or little you want.
I just want to make sure the quote, "We're not beatniks or aliens," goes on our newsletter.
About us. I wasn't.
Applies to Ubuntu.
We're not out on the fringe. We're out to see the mainstream economy change. And, people out on the fringe, people refusing to participate in the economy or starting communes and things like that, absolute fantastic role models like permaculture, like barter, like all the things that actually we need this system to mature into, but for everybody. So how I invented this in a way, being the son of the undertaker family is like being a preacher's kid. I had to be really straight and well-behaved or it was going to embarrass the family and hurt our reputation. So whereas most people working in alternative money were starting a neighborhood barter club or an anti-Walmart local currency like Ithaca ours, I just said, I'm a little straight for that. I better start something that goes over the Visa tracks or over the the mobile app platforms now. Oops. Okay, so now this is going to be quick, but again, I want to show you that all the precedents have been set. We're going to roll this out just like Visa took the world from paper currency to the first digital money. We will use the same formula to go from the old-fashioned money to a combination dual currency that brings the new money mainstream. So they invented the electronic dollar instead of health bucks. This is outdated. That'll say Scryp. And then money moves around on a payment platform. So there's new money and then there's new payment platforms. So they had to build the electronic Visa platform to move the electronic dollar. I actually invented and got patents in 1997 for dual currency platform, but the patents are expired. We're just really giving this away to the world. We only did it to attract investors and it didn't work. So. Then you have to build a cooperative network of stakeholders. So inside the Visa network were banks, merchants, and cardholders. And inside our network, I was showing you, there's merchants, activity sponsors, and our cardholders are just app users or members. Now, lastly, this is what's really interesting. People go, who's going to run this thing? And there's a modern phenomenon where things can be run from their design principles, from their protocol, and not from elections and management teams. So let me start with the internet. There's no elections on the internet. There's no management team on the internet. The design principles that got it rolling, and at first it was rolling with what's called a minimum viable product. It didn't look like the internet at first, right? It was the Department of Defense and campuses trading a little bit of information securely, then chat rooms and email and networking software and all that stuff. And then it grew up to be the internet. But all that time, it wasn't a political phenomenon in the sense of voting, 51% to 49%. It was just running and growing and morphing off these original design principles. Now, that's a high-tech example of something called a chaos. The founder of Visa wrote a book and he called it Birth of the Chaotic Age. and chaos is made from chaos and order. So instead of the chaos of the economy, what if there was the combination of freedom to do what you want, but order to interact intelligently? So the guy's name is D. Hawk, H-O-C. Anybody who gives me their contact information, I will send an essay by this guy that will blow your mind. But so, okay, the internet runs from design principles. Now, who knows this phrase? We're Minnesota, the land of 10,000 support groups. Who's heard the phrase, our leaders are just trusted servants, they do not govern? Where does that come from? 12 steps? Alcoholics Anonymous? Which, you know, instead of being, it's a whole non-cash healthcare system. I'm not going to go into that here, but it's people helping people instead of big institutions. No money changes hands, no doctors with credentials, no medication, technology, buildings, or paperwork, but the recovery from addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, shopping, is just as good, and the recovery, the recidivism, the return to addiction, just as low as if you're paying big bucks to the big healthcare system, right? So we learn a lot from that model. It excites us. So what they mean by our leaders are just trusted servants, they do not govern, again, like the internet, no elections, no management team, just the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. And you can go anywhere in the world and the 12-step movement is alive and well and healing people and using the 12 steps and the 12 traditions. Well, Visa is the same thing. The rules are called the interchange. A bank knows what to do, a merchant knows what to do, and a user, a cardholder knows what to do. So we're going to use this whole design principles thing. And remember, if it's voluntary, you decide if it's your thing or not. You're not forced by the government or Scryp or anybody to affiliate. You affiliate if it matches your values. All right, wrapping it up here, folks. Thanks for... So like I said, agricultural era 3 to 5,000 years, industrial era 3 to 500 years, computer era 30 to 50 years. Look out. A mobile app can be downloaded anywhere in the world the minute it's available in the store. We're really excited. We're looking for help. If you know a big investor, we're looking for that too. All right. So the last thing I'm going to touch on is paradigms. If I say this is not such a big deal because it's only a paradigm shift, and a paradigm shift is a fresh way of looking at things. When we went from the earth is flat to the earth is round, did the earth change by one molecule? What changed? Perception, right? Now, nobody talked anybody into it. Magellan went all the way around the world, you know, without falling off into wherever, outer space. So when we build a mobile app and it works, we're not going to be talking theory. We're not going to be hard selling anybody. It's just going to catch on virally. And so we want to gamify it. We want to have our values all over the place. We want grassroots organizations to birth it from the ground up. So, you know, you folks are a good example. Now, here's the other thing. When technology is involved, like it was in past money innovation, paradigms also will shift very rapidly. The 3,000-year-old paradigm, man will never fly, man, you know how that used to go, ended in 8 seconds and 120 feet at Kitty Hawk. 3,000-year-old paradigm ends in 8 seconds and 120 feet, right? And from then on, it was just innovate, innovate, innovate. So, there's a saying for us activists. Ask forgiveness, not permission, right? Just go ahead and get it going and then apologize later. But